You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Turkey has the ability now look at the schedule and dictate it, because in the past these other promoters don't care about the other promoters' shows going on. There's Eddie Hearn is not calling up Frank Warren and go, hey, what date are you doing Atalma? Because I'm looking to do a show. And, you know, it wouldn't really make sense if we were competing against each other. No, we're going to jam 5 cards down your throat on one Saturday night and make you, the fan at home, decide what you want to watch. And I hate that about the sport. And it's the disorganization of the sport, the way it's set up. But now with Turkey involved, with him pretty much working with every promoter, they could do this. They could make a better schedule.
Yeah, I agree with Dan Canastota. I think that because both Frank and Eddie are on DAZN now, there needs to be an active effort to spread cards evenly throughout the calendar year, and they're fully capable of doing that. Just do a better job of it, you know, that if Frank is doing a card in the UK that will be shown in the afternoon here in the United States, give us something for the primetime hours, Eddie. Let the Queensbury show be a lead-in to a potential Matchroom show in the United States. I feel like that would be ideally the way things work, but everybody just seems to be doing their own thing even when they're on the same platform. Not only that, there are the shows that Turkey puts together, these big mega cards that feature a lot of fighters that would normally be headlining their own shows separately. When you have a Bam Rodriguez, a David Benavidez, a Brian Gortex, and a Devin Haney, all boxing on the same show. And Abdullah Mesa. What ends up happening is you end up with a thinner schedule overall, because normally those fighters would have separate cards all built around them. They would be in the main event, and they would have several undercard fighters on these separate respective shows, though when you bunch them all together, you end up with less main events. So would it be better? At the risk of sounding ungrateful, I love Turkey's cards for the most part, or I have loved them, but I have to admit that it's taking a toll on the annual schedule. That many fighters that normally headline their own shows being on one show means less shows overall. Yeah, less boxing. Perhaps we wouldn't notice it as much if both Top Rank and the PBC jointly weren't going through hard times. I mean, the PBC is basically down to 5 or 6 shows a year if they're lucky, and Top Rank hasn't done a show in the last 2 months. 2 going on 3. The show this month featuring Michaela Mayer and Mary Spencer isn't really a Top Rank show. It's an Eye of the Tiger show. But because it features a Top Rank fighter and because Top Rank does business with Eye of the Tiger, it will be shown on Top Rank's Fast channel. We talked about in my previous video. I imagine the same applies to the upcoming Rafael Espinoza versus Arnold Kagai show. That's not really a Top Rank show. That's a Zanfer show. But I imagine that will also be shown on Top Rank's Fast channel. The only semblance of a Top Rank show we'll have seen in the last 2 months. So I'm not the only one that noticed it. Dan Canobio and Chris Algieri have noticed it too, that the boxing schedule feels a bit thin right now. It's been thin for months as a result of several contributing factors, not just one. The hope is that in the coming calendar year, should Top Rank return with a new broadcaster in tandem with Zuffa Boxing set to launch, set to do 12 shows annually on the Paramount Plus platform, the boxing schedule might be robust, and the boxing fans and the content creators might have more content to talk about, because right now, here at year's end, the schedule's kind of thin. Based on the existing schedule for November and December, it does look like things are going to pick up before this year is out, that there will be more shows in the coming month of November and December than what we're seeing this one. But I got to agree with Dan. I feel like the powers that be could do a better job of spreading these shows out and scheduling them evenly. Now, in regards to what is on the schedule, veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy took to his social media with a question. Who is buying the Parker vs. Wardley DAZN pay-per-view this Saturday? It's a good heavyweight matchup, no doubt, but what is the point of having DAZN if you can't even get this as part of your monthly subscription? If two heavyweights hit each other and nobody watches, does it make a sound? Adding to that was boxing insider Rick Glacier, who said, Steve Kim has a valid point. I'm a big believer in DAZN, and I'm an original subscriber that 7 years later is still a subscriber, even after multiple issues that boxing enthusiasts are not happy with. Parker vs. Wardley being pay-per-view in the UK? I could see that, but in America, absolutely not. That I do have issue with. This is the kind of modus operandi that definitely needs to be righted. And I'm in full agreement. Hell, I said it before they did. This should not be a pay-per-view. And I've asked around. I've talked to one or two Brits, and the feeling is, this shouldn't be a pay-per-view for them either.
Then why is it?
It must be to satisfy the fighters' financial demands. Joseph Parker has already made more than one appearance on those big Riyadh season shows, getting a big Saudi bag in the process.
I'm sure Fabio wants a lot of money too.
But whether or not you should bill a card, bill a show as a pay-per-view, shouldn't all boil down to what the fighters want or what the fighters need, their teams. The market dictates the value of a show, whether or not they buy it. That tells the story, and the overwhelming feeling is this should not be a pay-per-view, and thus, most people aren't going to buy it on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean.
It's a mistake.
More specific to America, Frank and George and the people at Queensbury can't possibly think that Americans are about to fork over $60 to see this. If it's a bad idea to bill it as a pay-per-view in the UK, then it's an even worse idea to do that in America.
They're shooting themselves in the foot is what they're doing. Because for the nothing that you're about to get in America for this pay-per-view, you could have billed it as a non-pay-per-view, and existing subscribers likely would have watched it. Which in the middle of the afternoon would have bolstered the metrics for the DAZN platform, drawing eyes to it with this non-pay-per-view, simultaneously enhancing the profile of the card and the profile of the fighters if it's a non-pay-per-view.
You have to ask yourself, in the month of October, was it even worth being a DAZN subscriber? Imagine you paid for the month, or worse, you paid for the year like I did. The month of October did not deliver for existing DAZN subscribers, so that they can then turn around and charge you $60 for this?
It doesn't make sense. For a perspective, the Ben vs. Eubank card, the first one, while that was billed as a pay-per-view, it was only $25.
This is more than 2 times as much.
Now, I had my reservations about Ben vs. Eubank being billed as a pay-per-view to Americans, but at least it was only $25.
Way less than a trip to the movies, whereas this is $60. So what exactly is Frank and George? What are they thinking?
Nobody's gonna buy this.
Not in America. And for nobody buying it in America, you may as well have billed it as a regular fight, as part of the regular schedule, because then at least people would have watched it on DAZN. This is a mistake.
A lot of talk about the amendment of the Ali Act. We all know what the California State Athletic Commission ruled last week. Eric, what are your general thoughts on it as someone that's inside the business?
I mean, obviously, look, first and foremost, you got to protect the fighters. But having reviewed it and gone into it, the only fighters and managers that are going to be affected by this are fighters and managers that are going to sign and do business with TKO. That's it. It doesn't affect us. Fighters are going to have a choice. You want to go and deal with them, or you want to stick with the traditional promoter.
It applies. It still applies.
Yeah, it still applies. So it's not going to change the way we do business. You know, we believe in the Ali Act. We believe in, the protection of fighters and their purses and what they're making. It's just a matter of preference. It's going to benefit what they're trying to do, but it doesn't affect us in any way, shape, or form. We can still continue to do business the way we do business.
Well, isn't that what I've been telling you all along? That reality is often more mundane than people make it out to be. And for all of this hullabaloo about the Muhammad Ali Act and TKO and
It's much ado about nothing. It's just like Eric Gomez, president of Golden Boy Promotions, said. It's not going to affect anyone unless you sign to Dana or work with Dana. But if you're not going to, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Now, why is Eric Gomez's stance on this?
Why is he being more diplomatic than the Golden Boy himself, than Oscar de la Hoya? Oscar's being a lot more theatrical.
Because Oscar's got beef with Dana. It predates the inception of TKO and these amendments to the Muhammad Ali Act. This is just Oscar using this to take shots at a guy that he's already been taking shots at.
The way that some pundits have been reporting on this story that the Ali Act has been gutted and that it's going away, it's bullshit. It's all bullshit, and those are hit pieces. The existing framework isn't going anywhere. It never was, and boxers, they have a choice. They were never obligated to box for Dana's TKO. If they want to go the conventional route, they can, and for them, nothing changes.
Okay, then okay. So underneath it all, why is everybody losing their minds?
Because they don't like Dana White, because they don't like the way that he does things at the UFC. They don't like that structure. But perhaps what boxing needs right now is a bit more structure, a bit more accountability. Because I say it all the time.
What?
All the major networks have walked away, and it can't be because everything's hunky-dory in boxing.
The way that business is done, the way the business is run.
It can't be that this many major networks pulled out from the sport of boxing because of how good the business has been. That communicates the opposite, and that communicates that something needs to be different, something needs to change.
The people in boxing, they don't like the idea of a fixed pay scale. They don't like the idea of a ceiling because they want the wiggle room to ask for more money than they deserve. More money than they're worth. It's the truth.
But when you're talking about B and C tier fighters, well, how much are you supposed to be paying them? Any fighter that can draw, that actually is a draw, they're not going to go to Zuffa.
The fighters that do are likely not big draws, not big ticket sellers, and in that situation, what is Dana supposed to be paying them?
The fighters want an arm and a leg every time they get out there to face a live body, and God forbid that somebody actually gives them that arm and that leg.
The network.
Because that's where the money comes from. I mean, more often than not, that's where the money has been coming from. So you pay through the nose to get these guys in the ring with each other, and come to find out the event ain't worth what it costed. That's what happened with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder's rematch, and their third fight. The second fight was so much more expensive to put on than the first. It was a net negative. They didn't make any money from that because they couldn't cover the operational costs. If that happens often enough, you know what happens after that?
The network leaves. Like Fox left, like Showtime left.
But do you think you just get to burn through the network's cash? The money they're giving a promoter to put on shows that don't turn over a profit, no ROI. You think they're just gonna let you keep doing that? So before you go worrying about some boxer's bank account and what they think they're worth, what you should be asking yourself is, what does the market think? Does the market think they're worth it?
Because when they're not...
Houston, we have a problem.
The real issue with Dana is he would bring structure to the sport of boxing that would not allow for inflated purse demands, at least not among his own fighters.
That's what their real problem is. But is that a problem?
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Terence Crawford is the face of boxing, says Jaron Ennis. Who is the face of boxing? It's a polarizing question. However, most believe that in recent years, Canelo Alvarez holds that throne. After losing to Terence Crawford on September 13th at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, however, Jaron Ennis is convinced he's been replaced. He just beat Canelo, the face of boxing, and is said on the Ariel Hawaii show. So that makes Crawford the face of boxing at the moment.
Because he beat Canelo? What does that make Dimitri for doing it first? Dimitri Bivol? Remember him?
Although he's rarely had close fights, many questioned whether or not Crawford, 42-0 with 31 KOs, could get it done against Alvarez at super middle. Age wasn't on his side, he was 37 at the time. Size wasn't on his side either, after moving up 2 weight classes. Still, none of it played a factor on the night, as the Nebraska native boxed, brawled, and outsmarted Alvarez to a unanimous decision win to become the first male undisputed champion in 3 separate weight classes in the 4-belt era. In the immediate aftermath, Crawford has to decide his next move. He was non-committal on remaining at 168 and flirted with the idea of moving down to middle. Some are hopeful that a matchup with Ennis will take place, but even the Philly native, now holding the WBA interim title, says Crawford threw cold water on that idea. stating that he has no intention of returning to junior middle, where Boots just arrived. Dennis, of course, would love the opportunity to fight the future Hall of Famer, but he knows the ball isn't in his court. More importantly, he knows Crawford has a ton of options. Let the man enjoy his victory, and it's continued. He earned the right to fight whoever he wants to fight. He earned that. So I'm going to cover this from two angles. From the Boots angle, giving Terrence Crawford his flowers is the smartest thing that he can do.
I don't think Boots Ennis said what he said as a PR move. I think he genuinely meant it, but as a PR move, it would be a smart one. There's no sense in making enemies over a fight that isn't going to happen. Clout chasing Terrence and disparaging him.
During Boots' time on Showtime, they tried to use him as an anti-Crawford, the kryptonite for a Terrence Crawford, and that made Boots a lot of enemies. It got Boots a lot of negative attention.
Especially after Terrence Crawford sends Boots an offer, and all Team Boots can talk about is how they're loyal to Showtime.
We've already been all through that. Boots got a lot of negative attention because of that, pitting himself against Terrence Crawford, whereas now, giving Terrence his flowers.
Acknowledgement.
Hopefully that will cause the Crawford fans to simmer down and give Boots a break. So as a PR move, it's a smart one. Is the statement true, though? Is Terrence Crawford now the face of boxing for having beaten Canelo Alvarez? And it really doesn't work like that. It's not an episode of Highlander where you cut the guy's head off and then absorb all his powers. Terrence didn't absorb all of Canelo's customers, his paying fans. The only way to know if Terrence is now the face of boxing is in his next fight and what that does.
What interest that generates, what metrics, what money.
Being the face of boxing is a numbers game, and it's all about what you generate at the gate, what you generate at the box office, what you generate in terms of interest and metrics, popularity. The face of boxing is the guy who moves the needle more than anybody. It used to be Oscar De La Hoya, then it was Floyd Mayweather, then for a while it was Canelo. Is it Terrence Crawford now? Is he the guy who's going to move the needle more than anybody at 37 going on 38 years old in the twilight years of his career? I'll tell you that even if he is the face of boxing momentarily, I don't think that's going to last very long. How many more fights does Terrence have in him?
I would love for Terrence to have another 2 to 3 to 4 years to give to the sport of boxing, but at his age, that is a legitimate question. How many more fights does he have left in him? And who says that just beating Canelo makes you the face when Dmitry Bivol beat Canelo and no one calls him the face of boxing? He beat Canelo 3 years ago.
Keep telling you, it's not an episode of Highlander where you take the guy's head off and all of a sudden you absorb his powers. In this instance, absorb his customers, absorb his fans. It doesn't work like that. And I've often said that becoming a draw in the sport of boxing isn't an exact science.
It never was. If there were a tried and true formula that worked every time, worked all the time, then everybody would use it.
But you see just as much as I see that everybody's not a draw. Everybody's not a big ticket seller. So as much as I would like for Terrence to be the face of boxing, we don't know that. And it's not as simple as beating Canelo and then you're there. There's more to it than that.
Only time will tell if Terrence has really ascended and he is now the face. We'll see what happens in his next fight if he does fight.